Thank you. I think what's positive is the conversations that have been going on. I had a private members on addiction and the wide range of issues relating to that some months ago. Deputy Fanning opened up the debate on legalising cannabis this week, and we're having a further debate this morning on alcohol and the sponsorship of sports. And I think the first point we all acknowledge is the unhealthy relationship that people have in this country with alcohol, and we know the costs. We know the cost to the health service, we know the cost in terms of crime. We know that alcohol is a contributing factor, and I think it's 90% of public order offences. And we know the link between early school leaving and bad social conditions and housing conditions, crime, with drugs and alcohol. The increasing number of children in need of child protection services because of their families' misuse and abuse of alcohol and drugs. It's the most common date rape, and it's used in so many cases to facilitate sexual assaults. And there's really alarming figures on the increasing levels of liver disease, particularly among young people. And we're talking about people in their late teens and early 20s. And we talk about gateway drugs, and I actually think that alcohol is the gateway drug for so many people. It's unfortunate that we're living here where every event from the cradle to the grave is associated with alcohol. And we see it from the easy availability, the cheap alcohol, the social acceptance of it, but more frightening, the social acceptance of drunkenness, plus the extent of the at-home drinking that's going on. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that the majority of people do drink moderately. It's a sociable drink, it's enjoyable, and they're not the people who end up in A&E or in the prison cells at the weekends. I think there's another unfortunate connection between, and I use the word loosely, between certain figures in the artistic, the literary, the music worlds, and it's such relation to them. It seems to be very acceptable that the Brendan Beans and the Hemingways and the Dylan Thomases and the Richard Harrises and the Burtons, they certainly didn't contribute anything to the moderation debate, and we see it again with certain figures in the music industry today. And I think the media have a major role here on this one, that they don't portray this kind of activity and this sort of behaviour as something that is fun and it's acceptable and something that it's no harm whatsoever. I'm involved in the Prevention and Education Subcommittee with the North Inner City Drugs Task Force, and part of that we had 2 youth conventions recently. We had over 110 young people from second level schools in the north east of the city and another 85 from the north west. And it was a conversation with those boys and girls, and we were asking them about their usual night out, what was involved in it, the positives, the negatives. We looked at the media and alcohol promotion, the influences on what they drink, their views on minimum pricing, the sponsorship issue, the age limit, bearing in mind that these were all under 18 and shouldn't be drinking anyway, but that's beside the point. And we were looking at the prevention and education strategies that worked and didn't work. And it was a really good exercise. There was a space for them to give their views. There were no lectures and there were no lists of do's and don'ts. And we listened to them, and I would ask actually, when this topic is being discussed, that young people directly would be listened to, and not the organisations who say they are representing young people who have long past their teens. No disrespect to them, but I think there's an awful lot of sense coming from young people and a lot of wisdom and insight. Now, looking at this particular one, their response to should the drinks companies be allowed to sponsor the sports events, and there was a mixture of answers. And some of the answers on the side that they should be allowed were interesting because the organisations needed the money. That was one. That it didn't influence their drinking because they buy the cheapest drink. And that it's the ads that encourage them to drink more rather than the actual sponsorship. People will drink anyway, it's a free country. Some see it just as a sponsorship and not an actual promotion. Those against it saw the negative connections, that on the one hand you have sports kind of advertising a healthy lifestyle, encouraging people to be healthy, and then you have the contradiction that it's alcohol, which is bad for you, is sponsoring this. So when I go back to what they said about the cheap alcohol, the easy availability, the promotion in the ads of this positive, fun-filled lifestyle, the acceptability of it. Some of their lack of awareness was also interesting, of the actual harmful effects that alcohol can have. So my point is that what's happening, the discussion this morning is vital. I think there shouldn't be this sponsorship, but it has to be part of other strategies, because not one on its own. And of course the question is, why would the companies spend so much money on sponsorship unless they were getting something from it? The ring fencing I have a little doubt about, because it's almost like saying, well, drink as much as you like, but the alcohol companies will pay to pick up the bill on people who end up with diseases. I think, again, just to go back to that, listen to young people. They have really, really good interest in this. They have really good insights and very, very good suggestions.
Thank you, Deputy Jerry.